Let's continue with this conversation right now with Ravi Agrawal. He's the editor-in-chief at Foreign Policy magazine. Ravi, thank you so much for being here. We just heard from Secretary Blinken a short while ago in Berlin saying this is about the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and he says that Vladimir Putin doesn't believe Russia is a real country, and this will be defended because the people of Ukraine have a right to self-determination, and nobody should threaten that, not even Russia. Is that a good framing of why we have this standoff?
Well, it certainly is the American side of the framing, and I think what Antony Blinken set out to do here, and rather effectively too, if I may say so, was to lay out that whatever happens next is on Russia. He tried to make clear that the reason why we are at this point right now is because there are, in fact, 100,000 Russian troops at Ukraine's doorstep, that Ukraine itself has said nothing more than the fact that it wants democracy, it wants eventually one day to join NATO, and that's what NATO is about, and that anyone who chooses to join can do so if the other NATO members want that to happen. So in a sense, the way Blinken framed all of this was part of the United States' larger strategy, really, of supporting democracies around the world and aligning them against autocracies. And I think that sort of framing right now, as Blinken meets his counterparts in Berlin, as he did in Kiev, and as he sets up for this big meeting in about 24 hours with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, is really important because as it stands, we still don't know what Russia actually wants to do. And there's a strain of thought, really, that it is in Putin's advantage to keep everyone guessing. No one really understands what he wants to do next, or what are the things that would lead to him deciding either way whether to invade Ukraine or not. So in laying everything out clearly in terms of what the United States wants, what Ukraine wants, and what's at stake for Europe and the world, Blinken was trying to put a decision on Putin.
Ravi, I want to play for you something the British Prime Minister said this morning about the potential for a Russian invasion in Ukraine and trying to get all the allies to speak together. Listen.
As you know, there was what they call a quint discussion. So France, Germany, Italy, UK, and the United States about this. And look, be in no doubt that if Russia were to make any kind of incursion into Ukraine of any on any scale, whatever, I think that would be a disaster for not just for Ukraine, but for Russia. It would be a disaster for the world. And the UK stands squarely behind the sovereignty and integrity of Ukraine.
Didn't mention President Biden directly, but we can ascertain that he was talking about President Biden's comments yesterday. Also, your reaction to that as we wrap this up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that was an implicit reference to that. Biden, of course, to remind our viewers, in a sense, made what many are calling an unforced error by saying that the US's response and Europe's response to a potential Russian action on Ukraine would be different if it was a minor incursion versus an invasion. And those differences are, in fact, real. And those are ongoing live discussions between European countries, between NATO members. Right. It's meant to be between them. And one would expect that the United States would present a more united front to Russia. So that's probably what we're hearing pushback from the UK and other countries. And we'll hear more of that in the coming days, I think, as the world tries to, most of all, prevent Russia from invading.
Ravi, we're going to have to leave it there. Many thanks, Ravi Agrawal, the editor-in-chief of Foreign Policy magazine.